Good evening, everyone. First of all, I welcome each and every one of you to this 15 days free training program on Python for AI. I'm Anuhya, and today is not just the start of a course, it is the start of a skill that can shape your future. It is the beginning of a journey into artificial intelligence, future technology, and your career transformation. We live in a world powered by artificial intelligence, machine learning, automation, data science. And behind most of these technologies, the language driving them is Python. Python is not just a programming language, it is the backbone of many modern AI systems. Companies like Google, Microsoft, Amazon all use Python heavily for AI and data applications. So, what are we going to learn in these 15 days? So let me quickly walk you through what we are going to cover in this training. Firstly, we'll start with the basics. We'll know about what is Python and its introduction, and how it is developed and how it is evolved through the years, the history of it, and the features of Python which makes it widely adopted and popular. And also the installation and setup. To run Python on your local machines, you need to install it, and then Python IDEs. So these are like some workspaces where you can work with Python. And then we will move on to core programming, that is variables, data types, and then operators, conditional statements, loops, and also loop control statements. So these are the building blocks. Without strong basics, AI is not possible. And then we will move on to deeper topics like functions, recursion, lambda functions, modules, and packages. So these are used for code reusability. And then we enter powerful concepts like file handling, exception handling, regular expressions. And finally, we'll learn about the libraries like NumPy, Pandas, and also about object-oriented programming. So these are the pillars of AI and data science. After this, you won't just know Python, you'll understand how Python AI projects are built. For these 15 days, I just request every one of you to attend the classes daily and follow the 15 days coursework, and then practice daily as well. Hands-on sessions on your codes and by yourself is very important. So hands-on, and then don't fear the errors. How many more errors you make, that much you'll be learning. So don't fear the errors, practice daily, attend the classes, and then ask your questions, small or big, at the end of the session. And then lastly, but not least, believe in yourself. So remember these 5 things for these 15 days, and at the end of the 15 days, you'll know how to build with Python. So let's get into our topic. So what is Python? Before knowing about what is Python, let's start with the core reality of computers. So computers do not understand languages like English, Hindi, and Telugu, or any other human languages, right? So computer only understands machine language. So machine language is basically zeros and ones. So it's in the form of binary format. So binary format is nothing but it's in bytes of data, that is with zeros and ones. So this consists of single digits or the binary digits called or the binary digits or bits, and this wholly is called as bytes. So 1 byte is equals to 8 bits. So in this way, your machine language will be there. But if you imagine writing programs like this for lines and lines of code, it would be very difficult and very time consuming. So humans created programming languages. So programming languages act as a bridge between human logic and machine code. So programming languages help us to write instructions in a human readable format and also convert these instructions into machine code, and also they make your software development easier. So one such programming language is Python. Python is a high-level interpreted programming language that is widely used for building software, websites, automation scripts, data analysis, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and many more. So Python is very easy to read, and also it is easy to write. It is very close to human language, and also it has less complicated syntax. So let's say I want to print hello. So human thinking is I want to print a word hello. But in Python code, you need to be using a print function, and you need to keep it in apostrophes as a string. We'll learn in deep about this more, do not worry. So we'll just use a print function for printing any statement, okay? So the Python uses something called as interpreter. What this interpreter does is, it will take our code and Python code, and this will convert it into binary instructions or machine code. So you'll write a Python code and it will go through interpreter, and this interpreter will convert your code into machine code or binary instructions. And then this binary instructions or machine code is given to your computer, and that will be executed and it will be giving your result. So this way Python works. So unlike C or C++, which will compile first, Python will run line by line. So what does it mean about compile first? So compilation is just one-time translation of entire source code into machine code. So in C and C++, the source code will be entirely compiled to machine code and then it will be executed. But when it comes to Python, it will be running line by line, and the interpreter will translate each line and execute it, and then it will go to the next line. So it will translate and execute each instruction sequentially in an order, so line by line. So that's the difference between the other languages like C, C++, and Python. Now let us know about the history of Python. So the foundation idea. The foundation idea of Python was laid in 1980s, and the implementation and the development of Python began in 1989. So Python was officially released in February 1991, and it was developed by Guido van Rossum, who is the father of Python. So he's the creator of Python, and it was developed at CWI, which is Central Wiskunde Informatica, which is in Netherlands. And our father of Python is a Dutch person, and Python is inspired by ABC programming language. So this is the predecessor of Python. So you may ask, when we have ABC programming language, why do we need Python? ABC programming language is very easy and not so powerful. So the creator, Guido van Rossum, wanted a simple syntax and high-level features and also easy extensibility. So for these features, he had created Python. And the name origin is inspired by Monty Python's Flying Circus, which is a British comedy series and not the Snake Python. And the official website of Python is www.python.org. Then moving on. So the versions of Python. So Python has three versions till now. They are first version, which is Python 1.x. It had versions from 1.0 to 1.6. And the first release was in February 20, 1991. The purpose it served is it introduced basic Python syntax and supported functions, exceptions, and modules. Right now, the status of first version is discontinued and end of life was in the year 2000. And then we have the second version, 2.x. So the versions are from 2.0 to 2.7. The first release was in October 16, 2000. And the purpose it served is it had improved performance and added new libraries and features, and it was widely used in industry for many years. And the status of it is officially it is discontinued, and it was discontinued on January 1st, 2020. Then moving on to the next version, that is the third version of Python. So it had versions from 3.0 to 3.14. So the first release was in December 2008, and it had cleaner syntax and better memory management, and also improved security, Unicode support by default, and also it had faster execution. So this third version, right now it is being actively developed. The latest stable release of the Python is 3.14.3. This was released on February 3rd, 2020, and the industry mainly uses the versions like 3.9, 3.10, 3.11, and 12. And the important point here is 3.x, that is the third version, is not backward compatible with your second version. So the Python 2 code may not run in your Python 3. And Python 3.x, that is the third version, is recommended for development. Right now, the 3.15 is being developed. It is in the development stage, and alpha phase is released, and it is right now in a beta phase development. Then moving on, the installation and IDEs. So Python can be downloaded for free of cost on their official website, which is www.python.org. So you can go to the site, and there will be a subsection called as downloads. There you will be getting the latest version. I would recommend downloading 3.11 or 3.10. So they are neatly there. And then after getting your installer, that is a .exe file will be downloaded onto your local system. And then you can install that. And while installing, you can check the add Python to path checkbox and you can install it. And then you'll have Python in your local system. And there are also some IDEs. IDEs are nothing but integrated development environment. So the IDEs are nothing but the workspaces where you can work with Python code. So Python is the language in which you write, and the IDEs are the workspaces in which you can implement Python code and run it. So IDE is a software where you will write the code, run the code, and debug your errors, and also make some projects. So some popular Python IDEs are VS Code, PyCharm, Jupyter Notebook, and Spider. So when it comes to VS Code or the Visual Studio Code, it is the most popular one, and it has very lightweight and it is good for beginners. And then comes our PyCharm. It is very powerful and it is best for big Python projects. And it is also used in companies. And then this Jupyter Notebook, this is used in data science. In Jupyter Notebook, we can run our code cell by cell, and it is very good for learning and experiments. And then the spider environment, it is used in scientific computing. It is very similar to MATLAB interface. So Python is the language you speak to the computer, and IDE is the place where you write and test that language, which is Python. Moving on to the key influences on Python's design. So Python is influenced by many languages like C, C++, Modula 3. So functional programming is influenced from C language, and object-oriented programming is influenced from C++ language. And the scripting programming is influenced from Perl, and the modular programming and exception handling mechanisms are influenced from Modula 3. And then the ease of use and the simplicity mainly is influenced from ABC, and the garbage collection concepts are coming from Java. Moving on to the next topic. Now, let us know about the features of Python, which makes it widely adopted and very easy to use and powerful and mainly popular. So the features of programming language are the services or facilities which are provided by your language developers to help programmers or the users to build real-time applications. So these are like the characteristics or capabilities that make Python programming language powerful, easy to use, widely adopted. So there are 11 to 12 features of Python. Now let us know about each one of them. So Python is a simple language because of its three factors, which are a rich set of modules, automatic memory management, and user-friendly syntax. When it comes to rich set of modules, Python offers wide range of built-in modules and external libraries also. So it will help us to reuse the code without writing from scratch again and again. So Python gives us number of built-in libraries like random for random number generation, math for mathematical operations, CMath for complex number math, and then calendar for performing the date and calendar operations, and RE for doing the regular expressions, and then threading for doing the multi-threading process, and then GC, which is the garbage collection. So these are the built-in modules which Python give us. And then we also have access to external libraries. So module is nothing but a collection of functions, variables, and classes. When it comes to automatic memory management, Python has a built-in garbage collector. So the garbage collector automatically cleans up your unused memory or unreferenced memory. So what is an unused or unreferenced memory? So the objects which are no longer needed. And the variables which are no longer pointing to any data. And then the temporary objects which are created during execution. So these are some of the unused memories and unreferenced memories. What garbage collector or your GC module does is, it will automatically clean up your unused memory, and then it will give that memory to the variables or objects which are in need of memory and which use memory. So the user or the programmer doesn't have to manually clean the memory space and allocate it to other objects or variables. Python gives us this feature. And then the user-friendly syntax. Python provides easy to read, beginner-friendly syntaxes. So the syntax of Python is very easy to learn and code and also use. So it has clean readable syntax. It is almost English-like syntax. And it is also less complicated and less code compared to other languages. And then moving on to the next feature, freeware and open source. So what is meant by freeware? A programming language is considered as freeware if it can be freely downloaded without any cost. So there won't be any license cost for us. And anyone from anywhere can download it. So some of the examples are Python and Java. And when it comes to open source, it means that the source code is freely available to everyone. So the developers or companies can modify and customize it for their preferences or requirements. And they can create their own and customize it. So Python is freely available and the source code of it also is available to be modified and customized. The standard Python, that is the Python downloaded from their official website, is called standard Python. The official implementation name is C Python. So basically the C Python is written in C language and it is the reference implementation of Python. So why this C Python is important? Because it is most widely used in Python implementation and all Python features are first implemented here, and then other Python versions are based on this C Python itself. So when companies customize C Python for specific purposes, those customized versions or softwares of Python are called as Python distributions. Some of the Python distributions are JPython, IronPython, and MicroPython. JPython or Jython is used for running Java-based applications. So these applications run or work on JVM, which is Java Virtual Machine. And this allows Python to interact with Java libraries. So when you want the integration of Python and Java, you can use JPython. And when it comes to IronPython, it is used for running C#.NET based applications. So this works on .NET framework. And it allows Python to access .NET libraries. So when you want to integrate Python and C#.NET and use it, you can use IronPython. And when it comes to MicroPython, it is used for development of microcontroller applications and also embedded systems. So this is a lightweight version of Python version and it runs on low memory devices. So some of the examples are IoT devices or robotics and ESP32 and also Arduino boards. So to summarize, Python is free to download and use, and there is no license cost, and the source code is available publicly, and it can be modified and customized. And moving on to the next feature. So Python is a platform independent language. A platform is nothing but the type of OS which is being used to run an application, project, or a program. So what is OS? OS is like a software where it acts as a resource allocation manager and also resource deallocation manager. So to run some code, we need to allocate some space to it. And after completion of it, we need to take up the memory used by it and we need to deallocate also. So OS works that way. So if a program runs on all platforms, it is known as platform independent. So Python is platform independent not because of the hardware, but because how Python programs are executed. So here, to briefly explain you guys, the source code, that is .py code, is converted into .pyc file, that is the bytecode. This is converted using compiler, and then this pyc code is going through your PVM, which is Python virtual machine, and PVM is available on every OS. So the same Python program will run on all OS because Python interpreter will be there. If it is installed, it will work the same way. So the same code runs on Windows or Linux or Mac OS without any modification. So due to the PVM, the Python code can work on any OSs in the same way without any modification. We'll learn about this in detail in the next features. So other platform dependent languages are C and C++. So moving on to the next feature. So Python is a dynamically typed language. So when it comes to programming languages, there are two types of it: the static typed and dynamically typed. Static typed programming languages are nothing but the users need to specify the variable declaration like the data type or identifiers. Otherwise, there will be compile time errors. So let's say you're giving x equals to 10. So you need to declare that x is an integer variable before giving it or assigning it some value. Like in C, we'll have int x. So that will be declared. So C is a static type programming language because we need to declare the variable data type before using it. But when it comes to dynamically typed programming languages, the users do not need to declare the type of the variable. So internally, the programming language execution environment will itself fix the data type for the value, which is entered by the programmer. So when it comes to Python, when you give x equals to 10, it will internally fix the data type to int. Because this is an integer value, it will give x as integer data type. And if you give some x equals to a, it will take it as ABC, let's say. It will take as a string automatically. You don't need to declare it manually. So Python is a dynamically typed programming language. Then moving on to the next feature, Python is a interpreted programming language. So a programming language is said to be interpreted if its program is executed line by line at the runtime. So instead of being fully converted into a machine code before execution, it will do what it will do is it will run line by line at the runtime. So the Python program consists of two internal steps or phases, that is compilation process and execution process. So what happens here is your Python source code, that is .py file, will not be directly executed. It will first be converted into .pyc file, which is a bytecode file. So your compiler takes your source code of Python and it will convert it into bytecode, which is done line by line. And then this bytecode is converted into machine understandable code or binary code using Python virtual machine. So this is done line by line as well. So first your source code will be converted into bytecode, and this conversion is done by Python compiler. And this compilation happens internally, and the programmer never manually runs your compiler. This all will happen internally. And this compilation happens line by line. And this .pyc file will be stored in pykh folder. And then your execution phase. In this, your Python virtual machine will read your bytecode, that is .pyc file, and it will execute the bytecode line by line and it will convert it into machine understandable code or binary code. And then what happens is this binary code, which will be understood by your OS and your processor, and it will execute your code and it will give the correct appropriate result. So the key role of PVM here is it will act as a bridge between your Python and OS. So this PVM itself makes Python a platform independent language, and it will also handle memory and execution. So moving on to the next feature, Python is a portable language. So a program or a project is said to be portable if it can be moved from one OS or hardware architecture to another OS and hardware architecture. And it can run with little to no modification required, regardless of the vendor or system architecture. So your portability basically depends on three factors, that are OS, which is Windows or Mac OS or Linux. And second is hardware architecture. That can be 32-bit or 64-bit. So hardware architecture is that the processor will execute your 32-bit chunks of data in 32-bit hardware architecture, and it will execute 64-bit chunks of data in 64-bit hardware architecture. And then thirdly, the system vendors. So these are Intel, AMD, and ARM. So if a program runs on all of these without rewriting code, it is said to be portable. Python programs are highly portable because it is a high-level language and it will hide your OS and hardware details, and it will run on multiple operating systems and also works on different hardware architectures. And also it is a platform independent language. So the same .py code will run everywhere. So you don't need to rewrite it or recompile it for different OSs. And also there's an interpreter which is available in Python, which will convert the code into machine language for the in appropriate ways for the OSs like Windows, Mac OS, or Linux. And then there are some languages, other languages like C or C++, which are non-portable languages. So what happens in these languages is the source code will directly be compiled into machine code. So the entire source code will be converted into machine code using compiler before execution. So this total machine code will be executed then. But the machine code depends on your OS and your hardware architecture. So when this machine code or this code is sent to another OS, there will be some clashes because your machine code depends on your OS and hardware. So there will be a need of recompilation for different OSs. So these languages are non-portable languages. And then moving on to the next feature, which is high-level programming language. So there are two types of programming languages, which is low-level programming language and high-level programming language. In low-level programming languages, the data is typically handled in machine-friendly formats like binary, zeros and ones, as we discussed at the starting, and the octal and hexadecimal. But these number systems are not really or easily understood by the end users. They cannot remember all this. And when it comes to high-level programming language, it allows programmers to write code using human-readable syntax. So it is almost like English-like, and it can easily understood. And we don't need to worry about hardware details such as memory registered or machine instructions. So Python is a high-level programming language because it is in a human-readable syntax, and it is simple and easy to understand and easy to code as well. And the keywords are like English words, if, else, and while, for, etc. And also internally, the values are stored in binary, octal, or hexadecimal. So regardless of how data is stored or represented internally, the output we get is always in a high level human understandable form. So the result is always in a human understandable form. So it is understood by users and it is easier to work with. And it focuses on logic instead of machine details here, and it hides the hardware details. So Python is a perfect example of a high level language. Then moving on to the next feature, that is robust. So Python is a robust or a strong language because it can handle runtime errors. Python is robust because it can handle runtime errors gracefully. And also it will prevent any program crashes, sudden crashes, and it will continue executing safely. So Python has a feature called as exception handling mechanism. So due to this, it can handle runtime errors gracefully. So what is an exception? Exception is nothing but runtime errors that occur while executing a program. So these errors won't occur during the compilation. These occur during the execution part. So let's take an example. Let's say we are dividing 10 by 0 and we want to print this. So this is mathematically undefined because if you divide any number with 0, we'll normally get an infinity value. So this is mathematically undefined. So due to this, we'll get an error called as zero division error. Right. So we'll get a zero division error. So using the exception handling, like in exception handling, we have blocks called try block, else block, except block, and also finally block. We'll learn about this in further classes. And so without exception handling, the programs will crash or stop suddenly, and users will have poor experience. And also there will be data loss and some other issues. So using exception handling like the try block, else block, except, and finally blocks, the program continues the execution safely, and these errors are controlled gracefully, and then user gets meaningful messages. Instead of poor user experience, they'll get some meaningful messages like this is the error. And then the application becomes stable and reliable. So to summarize it, Python is robust because it has strong exception handling. And also it prevents program crashes. And also it improves program stability and reliability. And it provides user-friendly error handling. And then coming to the next feature, which is extensible. So Python program provides its module services to other language programmers for easy use and by writing less code with more meaning. So basically, Python is said to be extensible because other programming languages can call and use the Python code, like modules or functions, to extend their functionality very easily. So to tell it in simple words, other languages will use Python services. So here, Python allows the developers to write in Python. So they'll write Python modules and expose them as libraries. And then They can call these exposed libraries from C, C++, Java, and then they'll use these Python libraries in other languages. So Python acts like a service provider here. So what this does is it will reduce your development time, and also it will reduce your complexity. It also improves your productivity. So why this is useful is because Python code will be easy to write. So they can create the modules and expose them as libraries easily. And they can just call them in other languages, C, C++, Java. And it will increase the development, and there will be fast development. And there will be less code in your complex languages like C, C++. These languages are already complex. So to not make it more complex and just use the code, a simple code, we can use the Python modules and expose them as libraries and call them in other languages. And then coming to the next feature, which is embedded. So Python is said to be embedded language because Python programs can call and utilize services of other programs, mainly C and C++, as part of Python application development. So in simple words, this is just opposite of extensible feature. That is, Python uses other language services. So how is Python embedded? So Python allows calling C functions. And it also uses C libraries, and also writing performance critical code in C. So here Python acts like a host language. So it takes services from other languages, and it also gives services to other languages. So main examples which are very important here are the libraries like NumPy, Pandas, Scikit-learn, Matplotlib, and SciPy. So these libraries, you may see these libraries mostly are used in Python, but their core logic is written in C and C++. So Python can call C internally, and it can increase its speed and performance. So, so to summarize it, why this is useful is because Python remains simple, and the Python can use code from other languages like C, C++, and by using C and C++ libraries internally, it can increase its speed and also the performance, and it can get the advantages of both the worlds. So the simplicity can be taken from Python, and the speed and performance can be taken from the other languages like C, C++. And moving on to the next feature, it has extensive third-party library support. That means Python provides extensive third-party library or API support, which means that Python allows developers to use external libraries. These external libraries are developed by the Python community, and these are used to perform complex calculations and large-scale operations, and also advanced operations. So the limitation of the built-in Python modules is that the modules like random, which we discussed earlier, and math, and date time, or OS, these are just used for basic operations. But then, so Python supports procedural and object-oriented programming, and it will also so Python based. The applications of Python are web application development. So it is used to build dynamic and scalable web. Scalable websites and web apps. And it is also used for gaming application development. So it helps to create 2D and 3D games.
No, it is okay now. Some issue is there.
It is also used in artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning. So it is used to build smart systems and that can learn and predict. So it learns and predicts your data. And it is also used in desktop GUI applications. So it develops user-friendly desktop software with graphical interfaces. And it also is used in image processing applications, which is used to analyze, edit, and analyze, edit, and manipulate text data. Sorry, the digital images. And text processing applications, it helps in processing, analyzing, and manipulating text data. And it is also used in business applications like ERP systems and CRM systems, and also some enterprise level applications or business solutions. It is also used in audio, video based applications. So it is used for media streaming and editing and also multimedia processing. It is also used in web scraping or web harvesting. So that is just extracting data automatically from websites. So if you need some information about some thing, so you want loads of data, you will just web scrape the data and automatically your data will be extracted from websites. And also it is used in data visualization. So if you have some Excel sheets of data and you want to pitch your product to a client, so you need to show a visual aids and you should have visual things like charts, graphs, and plots. So by that, your client can understand your patterns and your trends of your sales and how good is your product. So to represent data visually, we can use these using Python libraries and have data visualization. And also it is useful in complex mathematical calculations. So it performs scientific and numerical computations effectively. And also it is used in scientific applications like research purposes, simulations, and scientific modeling. And it is also used in software development for the backend development mainly, and also automation scripts, and also system tools. It is used also in operating system related applications. So it helps in system scripting and OS level automation tasks. So Python is also used in CAD CAM based applications. So it assists in computer aided design and manufacturing systems. It is also used in embedded applications like hardware devices like Raspberry Pi and microcontrollers. And Python is also used in IoT based applications. So if you want to develop some smart TV or smart home or smart connected devices and IoT systems, you can use Python. And also in the language applications like NLP, natural language processing. So if you want to process and understand your human languages, you can use Python and perform this. And also for the automation of testing, so it automates software testing process
and the quality assurance. And it is also used in animation applications. So to create animations or visual effects, you can use Python to create animation applications. And also it is used for data analysis and data analytics. So if you want to analyze large data sets, so to analyze it and find the insights and patterns, we can use Python and perform data analysis. And also in education sector, it can develop e-learning platforms and also educational tools. So Python is very useful. So for computer vision applications, it will enable machines to interpret and understand your visual data. And then moving on to the next topic, the popular third-party libraries. As we have seen these libraries at many locations from the beginning, the NumPy library is used for complex mathematical operations and for handling arrays. And also the pandas libraries is used for data manipulation and data analysis. To analyze large data sets, this library is used. And for regex or regular expressions, this is used for pattern matching and text manipulation. And then the scikit, which is used for scientific computing. And then the scikit-learn library, it is used for machine learning algorithms. And then the TensorFlow or Keras, this is used for building DL models or deep learning models easily. And then Matplotlib and Seaborn, these are used for data visualization. So Matplotlib is like the basic one, and Seaborn is built on the foundation of Matplotlib. So this is the advanced one. And then we have NLTK for natural language processing or NLP. So these are the popular third-party libraries. And then the practice problem for today is printing your name, age, and favorite language. So the print function consists of the attributes like objects and separating separator, and then the end attribute and file and flush. So for default, these are the values for the print function. So they are separated using a space always. And then the end function is the slash n. So then new line will be printed in the next new line. So the next text or result will be printed in the new line. So this one is for printing in new line. So by default, these are the values of it. And here we'll be giving the values we want to print. So it can contain multiple arguments which are separated by commas. So here the syntax, we're taking a print parenthesis, the statement. So we can print and then use a parenthesis. And if you want to write some text, you can use apostrophes. And then inside of that, you can have your text. And then I want to print my name. Let's say John. So my name is John. And then I want to print my age. Print age is 30. So inside of the parenthesis, you'll have your apostrophes and you'll have your text inside of it. So in that way, you can print it. And then favorite language is Python. So let's just run these codes once. So here I have the code. My name is John. So to print this, we can use it. And the result will be the text you have given inside of the apostrophes. My name is John. And then we'll have the my age is 30. Inside the print function, we'll have your text in your string. And if you print it, you'll get your text. And then my favorite language is Python. So at the end, the result would be my favorite language is Python, the text you have given inside of the apostrophes in the string. So this was the today's session, guys. Today we have learned about the introduction of Python and why it is widely adopted and popular, and its history and the features which make Python very popular and easy to use and human-like syntax, and also about IDEs, the workspaces where you can work with Python, and about the popular Python IDEs. And also we've known about all the 11 to 12 features of Python. And we have known about the applications of Python and also the third party libraries which we use in Python. So if there are any questions, feel free to put it in the chat box. So guys, we'll learn about literals in Python. So literals are nothing but fixed values which are used for giving inputs to a program. So literals are just the data which we give to the program. So without data, the programs cannot run. So data is like your integer values, etc. So the four types of literals are integer literals, float literals, string literals, and boolean literals. So integer literals are nothing but the integer values like 10, minus 25, 0. And float literals are nothing but the values with decimal points. So for example, 3.14 or minus 2.4, etc. And string literals are nothing but the text values or messages like hello, hello world, or hi. And there are boolean literals which has values true or false. So in general, to represent or store any type of literals in the main memory of the computer, we need objects. So objects are like a boxes in which you will be storing your data. So inside of these objects, you will store your data, the values like integer values or string values or boolean values. The objects are like the containers which contain your data. So to access these objects, we would need something like variables or identifiers. So to process the values stored in main memory, we must give distinct names to the created memory space, right? So these distinct names make us to identify the values, hence they are called as identifiers. As these identifiers are values which change and vary during the program execution, so these identifiers are called as variables also. So let's take just x equals to 10, and then if we give x equals to 20, then x will be pointing to 10, but it used to point to, before it used to point to 10, and now it will be pointing to 20, right? So the value is varying. So these are also called as variables. So what happens is, your variable consists of the reference to your objects which contain your data. So objects store your data and the values, and your variables will store the reference which will point to these objects. So variables are just the identifiers whose values are changing during execution of program. In Python, all values or the literals are stored in memory as objects, and then these variables are the references or names that point to these objects. So the objects store the main data like 10, 20, and then the variable that is x here, these will store the reference to these objects which will contain the data. And then moving on. So Python has some strict rules which we need to use to mention your variables in Python. So to use variables in Python programming, we must follow the rules. They are, firstly, the variable names should be a combination of alphabets, the lowercase a to z and uppercase a to z as well. And it should contain digits 0 to 9. And it can also contain special symbol like underscore. So this variable name must start with either an alphabet, that is lowercase or uppercase, and or an underscore, but not, it should not start with a digit. So let's say A, B, C. So this is a valid variable. But if you write 9 A, B, C, that would be invalid. And if you just have underscore as well, that is considered as a variable also. Or underscore ABC is also considered as a variable. And within the variable name, special symbols are not at all allowed, except the underscore, and spaces are also not allowed. If you want to write something like employee, you can not give space like this, or you cannot put any dollar symbol or percentile symbol in there. So these special symbols are not allowed, and spaces are also not allowed. And all the variables in Python are case sensitive. So case sensitive means we have lowercase and uppercase and also mixed case, right? So if you write apple in lowercase, that would be different from apple in uppercase. And if you give capital A and P, P, L, E, that would be a different variable as well. So this variable is different from this variable and it is different from this variable. So the variables in Python are case sensitive. And the keywords cannot be used as variable names because all keywords are reserved words and they have some specific meaning to the language compilers. So the keywords like if or for or else. So these are some English words and keywords. So these can be given as variables, like it wouldn't show any error, but they are not recommended because they have some specific meaning to the language compiler. So if and else is used for conditions and for is used for loops. So we cannot use them. And all variable names are recommended to take user-friendly names. That means if you want to save some salary of an employee, I can write salary. So I can just write so I can write a big variable. So I can just write a bigger name for the variable, but it is too long to use again and again. So I can just write it as employee underscore salary. So when I write this, anyone can understand that is the salary of an employee. Instead of writing just X, which is a small variable and no one can understand that's some salary of an employee. And instead of giving the longer variable name, which is very difficult to use it number of times. So we can just give emp underscore salary for giving any salary of the employee. And then moving on, the commenting in Python. So the purpose of commenting is comments are not non-executable lines in Python program, which are used to improve the code readability and document the purpose of it, and also explain your logic and decisions in your code. So they are especially useful when you want to share the code with others and revisit your own code to understand what you did there. You can use comments. So the type of comments in Python are single line comments, which you can use the symbol hash, and these are used for short explanations or temporarily remove a line of code from execution. And also there are multi-line comments. So Python doesn't have a dedicated multi-line comment syntax, but it can use triple quoted strings like single quotes 3 times, or you can use the double quotes, so triple double quotes. So these are commonly used when not assigned to any variable. And then the assignment of variables. So the assignment means storing a value inside a variable using the equal to operator. So what this does is it will assign the value on the right hand side to the variable on the left hand side. So this right hand side value will be given to the left hand side using the assignment operator. So here as you can see x is equal to 10. So x stores the integer 10, and then the name stores a string called as John, and then pi will store a float value of 3.14. And then there's also multiple assignment in variables. So you can assign different values to different variables in this way. So I've used a comma b comma c equals to 10 comma 20 comma 30. So what happens here is 10 will be assigned to a, and 20 will be assigned to b, and 30 will be assigned to c. So the respectively the values will be assigned to the variables, and then same value to multiple variables. So if you want to assign the same 100 to x, y, and z, you can use x equals to y equal to z equals to 100. And you can also swap the variables. So this is a special Python feature. Here I have given a comma b equal to 5 comma 10. So 5 will be given to a and 10 will be given to b. And if I want to swap this, easily I can just do a comma b equals to b comma a. So what happens is b's value will be assigned to a and a's value will be assigned to b. So at the end of the result, you will be getting a equal to 10 and b equal to 5. But initially a is equals to 5 and b is equals to 10. And then moving on. So here are some practice problems. So I've assigned a variable called as name equals to a string Jane, and the roll number, it is an integer variable here, so it is equals to 480, and the marks here is 98. So if I want to print each of the variable, I can give print of, in the parenthesis I can give the variable, so that is name here. So I can give the name in the place inside of the parenthesis, and then also if I want to print roll number, I can give print parenthesis the roll number. And then if I want to print your marks, so we can give the print function parenthesis, and inside of it we can have the variable name. And if I want to print all of them at once, I can just give print function, and inside of it the parenthesis, and inside of that I can have the variables separated by commas. So I can give the variable names which are separated by commas, and it will print Jane 480 and 98. So it comes with some gaps, right? So if you see in the previous practice one, we have given by default the separator is a empty space. So the empty spaces are given by default. Now let's just look at the code. So the first rule is the variable names are used to write with alphabets, digits, and underscores, right? So this here, we cannot write or start the variable name with the number here. So here we'll be getting an error. It is an invalid decimal literal. And then here I've used a special symbol and I've started the variable name with it, that is minus. This will also be invalid, and I got a syntax error here because it is not right. And then if you see here, I've given just the alphabets, and if I try to do it, so this is valid. So I'll not get any error here. And here A123 equal to 34, that is also valid because we have the combination of digits and alphabets. And here I've started with an underscore ABC equals to 34. This is also valid and I'll not get any syntax error. And here if you see, I've used two underscores and between that I have SAL, and that is equals to 2.3. So this is also valid because we have the underscore special character and also the combination of alphabets. And if I just give underscore also, that is still valid because single underscore is allowed and it is considered as a variable. And then when it comes to the third rule, special symbols are not allowed and also spaces are not allowed. So here I've given a space between TOT and salary, so total salary. So that will be invalid syntax. So empty spaces are not considered. And then here the special symbol is the dollar symbol. So this will also be invalid because special characters are not allowed in variable names. But this will be allowed because the special character here used is underscore. So underscore is valid. And when it comes to the asterisk also, it is not allowed because special characters are not allowed. And Python is case sensitive. If I give all the lowercase letters, age equals to 99, if I print it, so it has different memory address here. So it is stored in different memory address. So here the ID of the variable is used to get the memory address of the variable age. ID of function is used to get the memory address of the variable. And when I store all capital letters, age equals to 89. So if I try to print it, the memory address will be different. If you see, so 14071393800 till here it is same, but at the last four digits 7544 and 7224. So the memory addresses of these two variables are different. And here if you see, the first letter is capital, and this is also stored in different memory address. Let's just try running it. So this has a different memory address. As you can see, it has different numbers than the other two. So these are all three different variables. If I try to use a keyword and assign some value, so it gives an invalid syntax. So that's a syntax error. And if I use a while keyword, that is also invalid syntax. And if I use else keyword, that is also invalid because it has some specific functionality to perform. But if I give if 1, 2, 3 equal to 56, it will consider these as just alphabets. So it is valid. And if I give underscore while, this is also valid because here while, as it has underscore in front of it, this is just considered as some combination of alphabets. And if I go for uppercase if, that is case sensitive. So Python is case sensitive, right? So it will consider this as different value. So this is also valid. And when it comes to int and float, so these are not Python keywords, but int and float are built-in function names and not keywords. They are valid, but these are not so recommended to use as variable names. And then comes the sixth rule. So as you can see, this is too long to be variable here. So to use it for number of times to use this long variable name, it is valid, but it's not so recommended. So you can just use a short one, which is m underscore salary, to give a value. And then, so the practice problem here, I've stored a variable called as name that is equal to string Jane. So the name here is Jane. And then I've stored a roll number 480, that is integer values, to the variable roll underscore number. So this will store 480 inside of the variable roll number. And then if I want to print all of them at once, and we also have a float value which is stored in the variable name marks. So 98.6 is stored in marks. So if I want to print all of them at once, I can just do print parenthesis. Instead of it, I'll give name, comma, roll number, the second variable name, and then comma, the third variable name also. So I'll print it. Okay, we should run it first and then print it. So it will be printed as Jane 480 and then the marks. So these are separated by spaces. If I just want to print it separately, I can print name. So Jane text will be printed, and then I can print your roll number, that is 480, and then you can print marks, that is a float value 98.6. So that's it for today. If there are any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat box.